Well, I've been doing a lot of Facebook marketplacing.
Mm.
And a couple weeks ago for the missus's birthday, we went to this antiquity festival over at the Gibson County Fairgrounds
Yeah.
and got me some vinyl. And I had to leave one there because, well, it was the missus's birthday. So she got what she wanted, obviously. We only took a little bit of cash, and there was a record there that I found at the end, and we were tapped. But then I'm on Facebook and I find this guy that's got like a Hank Jr. album, and then I seen he had another one, and I sent him a message. I was like, "Hey, buddy, I see you got a." He actually had like 10 on there, so I've got the record player in there, and I've been working on these collections. And Hank Jr.'s who I got the most of. I think I got 15 or 16 of his albums. And I said, "Hey, you got these 6 here?" I said, "I already got a few of them. Would you cut a fella a deal on buying, 3 of them?" He said, "Nah, if you're a repeat customer." I was like, "A customer? You got a store or something?" He was like, "No, just then not my collection." I said, "Well, how big is the collection?" He said, "I got about 10,000 records here. I'm trying."
Holy shit.
And I was like, "Holy shnikes." He was like, "So what are you looking for?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "Because I don't know what all albums of the 80-some Hank had that were vinyl." I said, "What if I send you a list and you tell me what you got?" He was like, "Yeah, that's fine." He's like, "I got them cataloged." I was like, "What about David Allan Coe?" He was like, "I got some of that." I was like, "Well, I'm going to send you his too, because that's another one." I started collecting those because I just, by happenstance, ended up with like 4 of the David Allan Coe ones were like studio only, like they were released to radio, but never like meant to be sold. So the covers are a little different.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, that's cool." So now I've got the David Allan Coe one going as well. But so I'm getting kind of excited, waiting for this guy to get back at me with what he has here for those 2. And then, Merle and Waylon and George Jones, they're close behind the other 2, but those 2 are the ones I have the most of that I think are a little bit more harder to find. Some of the old Hank Jr.
So what's your goal here?
I want every Hank album that was ever on vinyl. He's made like 80 albums in his lifetime, but I'm sure all of them are on vinyl because some of them just came out a couple years ago. I mean, now they're coming out on vinyl again, but there'll be some in there that I'm sure weren't on vinyl. But I'd like to have every Hank Jr. album that he ever released on vinyl. But like the LP, like not the little 45s or whatever.
So how many more do you think you got to go?
I've only got like 15 or 16, and I know he's released like 79 or 82 albums, and we'll say 80% of those were probably all released on vinyl, so probably about 50.
I'm so intrigued by vinyl records. My dad had a busload of them.
I've been trying to pick up some Zeppelin here too lately.
When we had to finally clean out my grandparents' house, there was a old box full of them, and there were 45s in there too. But he's got an old Victrola downstairs that he bought, and it's like a newer. I think it's a refurbished one or whatever. But anyway, you know who also is a huge. I won't name drop him because I don't know if he'll want me to, but another friend of ours, not too fond of green, or a real big fan of Green Energy. I'll just say that.
Gotcha.
He went to St. Louis in a snowstorm blizzard to buy like a 1970s original console that's got like 215s in it.
So
like the huge cabinet,
that's what led me to build my record players. I couldn't find one of those,
right?
So I built like a half, like everything else. I do, like
exactly.
cheap.
Just really smokered it up.
Yeah,
smokified it. But he drove over there to Missouri somewhere and bought this sumbitch home, and he had to do some. He's kind of a geek like that, He had to do some geeking on there with his, he used to work at Sony and all that stuff, so he had to try to dig up some old service manuals and stuff like that and find how to fix this and that. But my God, dude, that thing beats. Like, it's old and the sound is just so.
I love listening to records, man.
It's insane. But he buys a lot of the genre of music that he listens to, which is like Tool, A Perfect Circle, a lot of those things. And they sell, like Tool sells vinyl. And then like Pussifer and all these bands, and like they're very, very sought after.
Yeah, it's been making a comeback for the last 10 years. When I first got into collecting them all, I was living in Brazil, and I was at a garage sale with my wife and some little old lady, and she had a record player and a milk crate full of records, and She said, I don't even know if it works, but if you give me, $3, you can have it. So I took it all home, and the belt was broken.
Yeah.
So I got it working.
Dave said, "I'll give you $2." And she said, "No, I'll need $2.75. $2.75." It's your. Dave said, "No, I'll give you $2.25. $2.25." She said, "No, $2.75."
So here's there's all man. I just went on the marketplace here and just jumped on vinyl records, and
So I've got every Sturgill album that's been released and Tyler Childers, which those aren't ones those are new and being released. But every time
I bought you one, we got
Oak
one
Crow.
at Oak Crow, yeah,
signed.
that's right, yeah.
That one's still in the package.
That's cool, man. Like that, I think that shit's cool.
But yeah, so I guess the question was, and I wish I would have thought of this. I think sometime in the last year and a half, we've had a conversation about collections or things you collect.
Oh yeah,
And I never even, I'm very seasonal with the record player. Like once it starts getting nice out, I really don't
mess with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then once fall starts coming and Jenna wants to start doing the sales and stuff, and then I start seeing vinyl everywhere, I get on the hunt again, and I'm like, oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, if you were going to start a music collection, that was going to be the question. If you were going to pick an artist or a group that you felt like, okay, I want the goal to be to have everyone they ever made, even the shit ones. Would there be who would that be?
No, I don't know.
I feel bad because I'm not I love and appreciate your passion for Hank and all those. I enjoy listening to them, but I don't own a single piece of vinyl. I don't. My younger brother's into it. I can remember forever. Mom and Dad had a vinyl record player. I don't even know whatever happened to it, but they had the whole sound system kit and caboodle there. There's no telling where that is.
Mm-hmm.
It may be with one of the other two that happened to be the offspring of Mary and Frank Lindemann. But I don't collect. I'm not a real big collector on some of that stuff. And if I had to, if you would say, because my music taste, this sounds weird, but I enjoyed Dave Matthews Band. And so
I like Dave
Matthews Band would be one that maybe I would collect. I've seen a couple of shows. I know a guy that's been to 100 Dave shows. I couldn't handle it. That 6 hours of your life, you're never going to get back. It's a fun experience a couple times. But then OAR, I kind of fell in love with OAR, which is kind of in the same vein of that Dave a little bit.
Yep.
But it'd probably be those guys. And then you mentioned Sturgill and Tyler and, Zach Bryan, these guys that are, I don't want to say blazing a trail, but they're doing it a little bit different way. They're not moving to Nashville and doing all that other stuff. They're just going out doing music.
Right.
So I think that would probably be where I would start my collection. Now, if I was I love that grainy, this may come as a surprise, but I love that grainy Delta blues, like Robert Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if a guy could start finding some of those original vinyls from some of those guys, probably the bad thing of it is unless you had a collector around here that was interested in that as well, probably harder finds. But I love some of that Delta blues that comes out with that dobro and that acoustic sound and that rawness to it. But I don't know a bunch of those guys where I could say, oh, I was going to collect that.
Yeah, I never got into blues, those old timey blues guys. Any in particular, one of them, there was Lightning Hopkins songs I like, but I'd always buy the back when you could get the Time Life Treasury, Origins of Blues, Greatest Hits, and you'd have all those old cats on there. You know? That's how I went with the blues stuff, but I never had one that I liked so much that I thought that in that genre that I thought I was oh, that'd be the guy.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to listen to that and then listen to new music and see you can follow who was inspired by that.
Yeah.
That's pretty
I think it's neat because it's like coaching trees, he coached under Bill Parcells, and then here's who all coached under Bill. And you can see that influence. You're right, especially when it comes to those guys that are quality music producers. Who did they learn from? And then that's how they kind of continue that.
That would be my next thing to bring up. And I've been finding out more because of David Allan Coe's son, Tyler Mahan Coe. He's got a podcast called Cocaine and Rhinestones, and he goes over just historical, mainly country music people. But he started talking about all these producers in Nashville.
Yeah.
And then like he'll play little snips of the songs the best he can because of copyright.
Yeah.
But you can hear, and he points out all these trends like, oh, you can spot a whoever produced album because you'll hear a lot more keys in there than you do anywhere else.
Yeah.
And like all these little things that pick up, I'm like, holy shit. It's just weird to.
I think what amazes me on a lot of these things is there's a whole lot of different experts in different fields that you wouldn't even think about, that you wouldn't go, it's intriguing, something that wouldn't tickle my fancy, but some of these guys, like, for him to say, well, this producer, this was their sound, this is what they did. And you're like, oh, I can hear that in his album and then his album. And then, oh, he produced that album. And then you're like, oh, and then he had a because that's the industry. It's so hard to get into, but it's like, once you get in though, you've got a job forever.
Right.
It's almost like being a professional coach or like a coach at a big Division I pro. You'll never not have a job.
Right. That's your Bill Belichick.
I would probably Foxborough High. I could probably collect. The radio station on Sirius XM called Lithium.
Yeah,
I would probably collect all of that in vinyl.
I got you.
Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Bush.
I just bought the Nirvana Live from New York.
Yeah.
2-disc vinyl set.
So top 10 most valuable records of all time. Number 1, you'll never freaking
It's the Beatles one.
No. That's number 2.
Okay.
Number 1, the Wu-Tang Clan.
Really?
Once Upon a Time in Shaolin.
All right.
Or however you say it. Shaolin.
Shaolin.
$2 million. The Beatles, the White Album, $790,000. Elvis Presley, My Happiness, $300,000. Number 4, the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, signed by all 4 Beatles, $290,000. 5 is John Lennon. 6, the Beatles, Yesterday, the Beatles. Like, there's a shit ton of the Beatles ones, but I couldn't believe that when I Googled most sought after vinyl, and the number 1 was the Wu-Tang
Clan.
And it came out in 2015.
That's pretty. What makes it so special?
The infamous and currently incarcerated Martin. I can't even say his last name. Shkreli paid a reported $2 million for this infamous 2015 album, which his copy was the only one produced, making it the most valuable and rare vinyl to date.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. All right.